Welcome to the Cash Flow Guys podcast. Join Tyler and his team as they unlock the secrets to achieving financial independence through wealth-building strategies inspired by Robert Kiyosaki and other thought-provoking leaders.
Learn to build leveraged streams of cash flow that land in your pocket and improve your quality of life.
Gain access to cutting-edge ideas that will increase your productivity and streamline your success. Find out how to supercharge your retirement plan so you won't have to retire with a pay cut.
You can escape the rat race.
Are you ready?
It's time to Learn to Earn with Tyler Sheff.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Guys podcast. It's that time again. We are here once again to learn to earn. I am your host. My name is Tyler Sheff, and I've got some guests today. And ironically, it's Veterans Day, and I've got two veterans on the hotline with me today. First is Jimmy Vreeland. He's an investor out of St. Louis, Army Ranger, go Army. And he's the co-owner of Joint Ops Properties along with his partner, Bob Scott. We've also got Bob on the line as well. Both being veterans of the U.S. Armed Services, they harnessed what they had learned in the military to lead themselves into success in the private sector. And that's something we're going to talk about here coming up. The Joint Ops Property specializes in lease options of single-family homes and boasts a zero default rate in the St. Louis market. That is impressive. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
How you doing?
Good, real good, real good. Go Army.
Yeah, thanks for your service, Tyler.
Oh, you too, man. Happy Veterans Day to you guys as well.
Same to you.
Didn't turn out so well for Army on that football game about a week ago.
Yeah, well, we got to have our off days. We can't be perfect and everything, right? Lucky for you, see, I don't even watch football, so, I used to tell people growing up, I'm like, you didn't watch the game? I'm like, no, man, I like girls. I'm out with girls while you guys are playing football. That's back when girls.
That's probably a sound strategy.
Exactly. That's back when girls didn't watch football. So there you have it. But I got to ask you guys. I saw on your website that you were veterans, and of course today is Veterans Day. So I'm going to start off right there. All three of us are veterans. How did the military help you guys become successful to where you are now? You were military officers, and then you transitioned over to just regular sold civilians. So what was that process like, and how did that affect you where you are today?
I think coming from the military and becoming an entrepreneur, I was always consider myself very self-motivated, self-driven. And then with the Rangers, it was always small units. So going out and being an entrepreneur and not having a boss, not having a corporate structure, it's been very comfortable to me. And I was a salesperson for a big corporate company, and I did not enjoy the corporate structure.
I can imagine. I could definitely imagine.
And then I think, it taught us the work ethic, and that having the honor code at both academies, don't lie, cheat, or steal. And we take on a bunch of private lenders and private money, and people do trust us with their money because of where we grew up, went to college, and we have a track record of not lying, cheating, or stealing.
And another thing, I think the military fosters like kind of a no excuse environment. It's like get the job done, whatever it takes, and it's not like, hey, 5 o'clock's here, I'm punching out, I'll see you tomorrow. It's just do whatever it takes to get the job done. So I think that carries over to entrepreneurship very well.
Boy, it's good to hear that again, I got to say, because that's my attitude as well. It's like, do your job, do it right, act with integrity, and you'll be fine. Success isn't rocket science. I'm
sure in your time, at basic training, you have to learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's a big part of investing.
That is a huge part of investing. I'll never forget basic training. I could talk for hours on that subject alone, but you're absolutely right. And it's funny because when I talk to veterans, and tell me if this is true with you guys as well, even if we're on the phone like this, after a few minutes of a phone conversation, even without a reference that's to anything military, you can tell when you're talking to another veteran. There's just a different way about veterans, no disrespect to those that are not veterans, but it's just a different mindset is really what it is coming out of the military.
Absolutely.
So that's great. I'm glad to have you guys around. I tend to have a lot of my vendors and a lot of the temp members of my team are all veterans, and it just kind of wind up working out that way because when I teach people out in the field how to get involved in real estate investing, one of the things that I tell them is try to find somebody, a vendor that gels with your personality. In other words, somebody that's extremely the opposite of you, depending on what role they're playing, could present a problem. Different personality types. So I find that our companies tend to attract veterans for some reason.
Like if I had to work with a vendor where I had to worry about their feelings, I would struggle.
Oh.
So that's why I like working with veterans too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's for sure. So you guys you're specialist experts, I'll say. In St. Louis, you're in the lease option market. No, it's interesting. Admittedly, I've done a few lease options, but I am by no means an expert. So I'm hoping to walk away from this from a great learning experience. I took a refresher course a few months back with one of our friends here in the area, John Schaub. But I've always found it intriguing. Tell me, what made you guys choose that as your niche, as an exit strategy?
Well, I wouldn't say we actually chose it. We kind of fell backwards into it, and a lot of other things weren't working for us. And we kind of stumbled upon it and said, hey, let's give it a shot, and it ended up working out fantastically for us. About 2 years ago, we had, I'd say, 5 single families and 1 4-family apartment building as just straight rentals. And the repairs and maintenance on the properties every month was killing our cash flow. And just answering those phone calls was a huge pain in the butt. Tracking down rent was a pain in the butt. And we ended up going to one of our local RIA meetings, and the speaker of the month had specialized in lease options, and just kind of, it was one of those light bulb moments where it was like, oh, this is the answer we've been looking for. And like within a few weeks, we'd implemented lease option advertising, and gotten all the forms and agreements we needed, and gotten the spiel down. And I remember vividly our first lease option property was a house in Overland, a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath, probably about 1,000 square feet. And this is a house that we had just purchased, and we found a tenant buyer to give us $5,000 up front when they moved in, and they actually paid cash. And I was like standing in the house, like showing the property to them, and they whipped out the $5,000 cash. I was like, immediately, like, oh wow, there's something to this lease option thing.
Hey, what did we buy it for?
We bought that house for $23,500, believe it or not.
So we had a 25% return on investment day one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was before payments started coming in. That's just the down payment. The security
exactly.
deposit or whatever.
That's really the glue that makes the lease options work, is that non-refundable option deposit that you get up front. It is non-refundable, so it's not like a security deposit. That's a big differentiator. That goes straight in our pockets. That's income. And then when the tenant buyer does execute that option, it will count towards the purchase price. So it's not like they're losing that money in the long run. But that's the skin in the game. That's the thing that makes it all work. And when we can do that, it means we're not having to track down rent as much. We're attracting tenants who have ownership mentality. They want to be buyers. They just don't kind of have the financial acumen yet to get them to that point. And that's kind of our job is to get them to that finish line and coach them up on some of those other things like credit score and debt to income ratio, and get them to the point where they can actually convert to buyers.
Now, how do you decide what you're going to need for an option consideration? What is it, a percentage that you go off of a deal, or do you just kind of pull it out of the air, or how's that work?
Yeah, so for our lower price point properties, we typically shoot for $3,000 to $5,000 non-refundable option deposit up front, and for us, that's an after repair value on a house of probably $70,000 to $90,000. That's the majority of our properties.
Okay.
Anything that we get that is nicer or a little bit higher price point, we actually don't set the non-refundable option deposit up front. We just put out a ton of marketing, and then we ask for applications and then see where they come in at. Because a lot of times we've found if we set the price up front, the applications will come in at that amount. But if we say, hey, this is a great property, we've got a lot of interest, submit your application, and you tell us what's the most you can afford to put down on your new house. We use those terms exactly. And a lot of times we've gotten $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 up front. So, if we'd advertise right off the bat on some of those nicer properties, hey, we'll take 3,000, we're really missing the boat on when somebody can bring us, a lot more than that.
And generally with our nicer ones, there comes down to a negotiation and a bidding war.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine. He who brings the biggest deposit wins type thing, or what
exactly. And monthly rent.
Okay.
There's a lot of variables we look at, but that's one of the other great things about doing a lease option is right now it's estimated that 80% of the total buyer pool can't qualify for a mortgage.
Wow.
So these are folks who want to be homeowners. They have the down payment. They have the income, but for a variety of reasons, they can't qualify. And a lot of times it is a credit issue, but those things are easily fixed. And then another source of folks is people who are self-employed and they need 2 years tax returns before a traditional lender will talk to them. And then folks who are new to the area or new on a job and don't have 6 months of pay stubs yet to show a bank. So we kind of work with all those people. And when we market a house on a lease option, we're targeting that 80%. And basically no other homeowners, most landlords and agents are just missing out from talking to that 80%. So that's really kind of our unique selling proposition in the market. And we put ourselves in that great supply demand scenario because we're talking to all these people and nobody else is.
So I never realized that the numbers were that staggering. Actually, that was a great education piece. 80% cannot qualify.
How many calls do you get?
Yeah, we get probably 300 to 400 calls every week, 30 to 40 opt-ins a day to our website from potential tenant buyers. I mean, there's overwhelming demand. I mean, we do a very good job marketing, but when you can have that much demand from tenant buyers, and we only have so many properties. I mean, finding the properties and finding the capital is our bottleneck. Once we've got a good property in a good area, it sells. They sell almost instantaneously. I mean, case in point, a few weeks back, we bought a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 2,000 square foot house on 1.25 acres. Had a 2-car attached garage and then a detached garage or like kind of barn workshop area.
Right.
And total investment on that property was just over $60,000. And I mean, I know that probably sounds crazy to most of your listeners, but those are the kind of deals you can get in St. Louis. We bought this property on a Friday, and by Monday, 3 days later, we had a non-refundable option deposit in hand of $8,000 and a tenant buyer paying $1,500 per month in rent. So, yeah, you can move properties super fast, and you don't have to make them quite as nice. Our tenant buyers can go in there, they can choose the paint color, and they don't mind doing some of that cosmetic work themselves. And because there aren't as many properties out on the market as a rent to own, there's just so little supply for them to look at. So you can get away with not making properties as nice as other landlords.
That's interesting. Now, are you guys actually buying the home and then reselling it as a lease option? Is that generally how you're doing it, or are you wholesaling the lease options?
We are actually closing on the property, taking title to it, and then putting a lease option tenant buyer in place.
Okay, so you've got deed.
Correct.
You make the purchase. I'm sure you probably leverage some private money, help people get their money to work out there in the marketplace as well.
Yep.
Bring private money in. Let's say you buy the property, and then you turn around and lease option it. And we'll talk about. Got some more questions about that here in a second. But you lease option it. They live in the house for a period of time, and then they exercise their option, and off they go. It's pretty clean, neat, and tidy. And really, you're giving people the opportunity for home ownership that would never have had it before. Because these are people that don't qualify for an FHA mortgage, correct?
Correct. And then the day they sign their lease with us, they meet their mortgage broker and their credit repair people. And we have an education program where we show them the 4 pillars of what they're going to have to do. So from day one, we're trying to set the mindset that this house is yours, and in less than 2 years, you will own this outright.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it really does behoove people to follow through with the program. Because an average rent that someone might be paying us is $1,000 per month for a property where they have an option price with us at $90,000. And if they go out and get a 30-year fix with today's interest rates and the 3.5 to 4.5 range, their monthly payment, including principal, interest, tax, and insurance, is going to drop probably $300. So that's the real push we make to folks is, look, you gotta get your financial house in order, and this is going to save you $300 every month for the next 30 years, and then it's locked in. And that's not counting any. If you look at rents, they actually typically increase about double every like 20 years. So you're locking this low price point in for 30 years, so you get a fixed rate loan.
That's a powerful model. It really is. Now, so, and I also read on one of your websites here that you maintain a zero default rate. And I got to say, listeners, before you guys answer that, I want to say that's outstanding, number one. Two, one of the resistances that I've had to the lease option model, I'll admit it, growing up as an investor, so to speak, is there's a lot of people in my market, they use lease option as a tool to set people up to fail. That's my opinion. They will take anybody that can fog a mirror and put them on a lease option. They're not taking any, I'll say, marketplace responsibility for who they're putting in their properties. So they hope that they fail. Well, obviously that's not the case here with you, because you've been able to maintain a zero failure rate. So you're setting them up to succeed.
Well, I think the zero failure rate is our private loans that we have to investors. We've not defaulted on any private money loans.
Okay, all right.
Or banks for that matter. But we have had tenants we've had to evict, and we have had tenants who their option has expired, and we just put them on a month-to-month lease.
Okay, I see. All right. So how do you maintain, let's talk about the private money then, the switch over if you don't mind. How do you maintain a zero default rate? That's good. That's just as powerful, frankly.
Because all these properties are cash flowing, so paying the interest to our investors has never really been an issue for us. And then after we've held the property for close to 2 years, we'll package 5 or 6 of them together, and we will refinance them with a bank and then give the private money lender their money back. And generally they reinvest it into another property.
Right, because if it's not broken, why fix it, right?
Right, and that gives us the ability to still buy 6 or 7 a month, and our goal is to buy around 70 houses a year.
Yeah, and as Jimmy said, the key really there is making sure the property is going to cash flow. That's our number one criteria when we're looking at a property. And on a pro forma basis on paper, we shoot for about $350 per month in cash flow after all is said and done. And our tenant buyer is responsible for all the utilities, so we really just have to worry about the our principal and interest, tax and insurance. And then any ongoing repairs and maintenance, the tenant buyer is responsible for as well.
Okay.
And I do think that's the best thing about lease to own is that it's a hybrid model. We have the upside of flipping, and we also have the upside of rentals. But we don't carry the downside of flipping, which is you're stuck with a property and it's not cash flowing. Well, there's not the downside of regular rentals because we still have the potential for that huge payday.
Well, and I think from a ownership standpoint, you're also taking the right steps in the right direction to mitigate capital gains tax. Keep that under wraps.
Exactly.
Because you're not turning the property in 6 months.
Right. And we do a few flips, but when I write the tax check, I'm always cringing.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I haven't had to write one lately, but I'm going to write a big one this year. I get the feeling, even though we've done everything we could to mitigate it, we're going to still have to write one, but that's the reality of life, I suppose. It could be worse, right?
Yeah, and that is my biggest problem with flipping and why we don't do a ton. It's just we take all the risk and we have all the tax liability. What's
interesting with flipping, you mentioned that, is that nobody, and I talk to these flippers all the time, they'll post the shut up check of, I made $50,000. I'm like, that's cool. How much did you clear? And then they look at you cross-eyed. It's like, well, okay, so take half of that in some cases and give that to Uncle Sam, and then you maybe get to keep the rest if you're doing everything right.
Right, and we got out of the military, or I got out of the military in 2008, so I've always been conscious about, I guess, when the musical chair stops. And I know what people who flip get into that issue. And to us, if the market crashes, we don't really care because all these are still cash flowing assets.
I see. That's cool. So yeah, you're not. Yeah, because you're still everything is status quo essentially.
Right, and we have 3 flips going on right now. So let's say there was a crash and we're not going to get the appreciation we wanted. It's not that big a deal. We throw a tenant buyer in there and move on.
Yeah, and I know people that they've got a bunch of inventory of mid flip. I call them mid flip properties where they've acquired them. They've started the flip. They're not done yet. They've had them for about 6 months. They've got, well, I can think of one investor has about 3 dozen properties. And I'm thinking, you better get going. You better start finishing these projects and getting them sold because things are going to change and that's going to hurt. So I don't want to repeat history again. Can you walk through with us briefly? I mean, we only got about 10 minutes left here, but about it, how a typical transaction plays out. You acquire the property, you close on it, and then what?
Yeah, so we'll close on the property, and we pretty much use entirely private money up front for our purchases. And then once we've got a property, it pretty much goes into our marketing system. We will do any repairs and maintenance that are needed, but we typically try to shoot for properties that are functional but just a bit dated. So maybe an elderly couple lived there and the property's been really well maintained, just hasn't been updated in 15, 20 years. And those work great for lease options because we can pretty much move a tenant buyer in there almost immediately without having to take on a big repair budget and manage contractors and do that whole process. So really eliminates our holding costs. But once we throw it in our marketing system, we do 3 main things to market properties. And the first one is Craigslist. We're just posting properties on there all day long. Craigslist still works very well in our market. We also use VFlyer, VFLYER. It's a syndication site. And basically you can post a property on there one time, and then it'll automatically post it to 30 other real estate websites like Zillow, Yahoo Real Estate, Trulia, and some others.
Nice.
And then the last thing we've been doing for about the past 6 months is posting properties on Facebook, which has been a really great source of tenant buyer leads. And we try to target the zip code that a property is in, and we exclude agents or investors, people who are involved in the real estate world. So we know we're really only focusing on folks who are just individual homeowners or home buyers.
So you're marketing on the end client. That's smart. Very smart.
Yeah.
And Facebook's been so good to us, we stopped doing bandit signs.
Really?
Yeah. We used to do street signs, which were a decent result, but now with the click of a button on Facebook, for $10 to $20 a day, we've got an ad that's running for probably about 3 months straight now. I mean, we get anywhere between 15 to 20 opt-ins a day to our website, and that's opt-ins where we get full information. That's not counting hits. And obviously, it's a marketing game. Not all of those are great leads, but there are always a few winners every day in there.
You're the first you guys I've ever heard actually say that Facebook overpowers their local marketing. I think that's awesome, and I was just actually talking about that with some friends of mine the other day. And I don't think that most real estate investors are missing the game when it comes to digital marketing. I do a lot of my marketing via digital means, Facebook, Twitter, and whatnot, and don't overlook that, listeners. Don't overlook that at all. And the beauty of Facebook, a bandit sign, what do? You stick it in the street corner, and a couple thousand people drive by it. Well, how many people does that sign apply to? Well, with Facebook, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, you can laser focus your message only to the specific audience that you want to reach.
Yeah, you can get really dialed in with the demographics on Facebook, and we found actually there's a lot of interest on our ads from the female audience. I guess that they're looking towards their next home, and I guess the rent to own really appeals. They're renting somewhere else and they want to get into a house that they can be in long term and raise a family.
And bandit signs, you have to employ somebody to go put all those in the ground and draw all the signs. So that was was huge for us.
Yeah, and we, just get grief from the local code enforcement. Some areas are okay, but it's pretty much always in a bit of a gray area anywhere you're at to be putting out bandit signs. So we can avoid a lot of grief there as well.
Yeah, it's a hassle. Bandit signs are just a hassle all the way around. They're a big problem in my area. They're heavily regulated. In one county, it's ironic. I live on the edge of two counties. In one county, it's taboo. The other county, it's like, well, there's a law, but we're just going to look the other way. But I got to say, I find it annoying that the politicians can get away with it. I don't care who you voted for. It's like, well, why do you get to put them out, but nobody else can? The entrepreneur can't put them out, but nobody else can. But I don't get that out. I don't understand that at all.
Good point. I never thought about that.
Right. Everybody's illegal, but the politicians, they're legal. Okay, dokie. One of the things I wanted to cover was the credit repair. You mentioned that early on, that the credit repair is in the mix, and I'd like you to touch on that a little bit. You're obviously doing what you're doing. You're successful at it, which means you're probably finding credit challenge, that I'm assuming. So if I'm wrong, correct me, but you're finding credit challenge people that are not able to buy a home on their own. They come to you. You bring value to the marketplace by providing them that product they need so they can move in and take care of their family. There still remains the credit issue. You talked about you've got that credit issue. You've got the credit management piece in there. What does that look like? How does that work?
Yeah, well, there's two sides of it. One is credit repair, and the other is credit improvement. So credit repair, I think, is what a lot of people focus upon when they hear about having credit issues and trying to improve their situation. And that's basically getting with a company that's going to go through your credit reports and remove any items that are incorrect or try to challenge any late fees. And that's fairly common. But the other thing that we do that I think a lot of people miss out on is the credit improvement side of things, which is adding new things in that are reflecting positively on someone's credit report. And the two primary things we do are getting our folks a secured credit card with a small balance where they know they're not going to get in trouble, and using it every month, but not going over, let's say 30% on their balances, and making sure they pay it off every month. And those secure cards really reflect very well on someone's credit report. And then the second thing is reporting on-time rent payments to the credit bureaus. And this is a relatively new thing. I think it's only been out the past year or so, but we use a company called Rental Karma. And it, if our tenant's paying us every month for the past 12 months on time, we can actually put that on their credit report for them. And Rental Karma right now reports to TransUnion, and I think they're in the works of getting it on Experian and Equifax as well. And if you think about it, your mortgage payments reported every month, and that helps people out. But you've got a lot of good folks who are paying a lot of money every month, paying $1,000 per month rent. And that's never reflected anywhere in their credit situation. So I think it's a nice piece that we can add this.
So what this all comes down to, I'm saying this boils down to, is that you've taken the steps. You've applied what it comes down to is you've applied what you learned in the military. You've taken steps to go out and handpick the team. You got the credit piece, the mortgage piece, and of course acquisitions and light rehab and whatnot. And you put all this together in a big pot, and that's what makes this business tick, is what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
Having all those different components, that's pretty powerful. Well, that's awesome.
Well, just not quitting also. When we first started, you couldn't improve their credit. We couldn't do anything, and we kind of thought that was BS. We're like, what can we do to get through this obstacle? Rental Karma shows up. If you're looking to get through an obstacle, things start popping up for you.
Yeah, and really make sure you ask the right questions and know what you're looking for. And one other little example that we've done recently is with the overwhelming number of calls and inquiries we get, it's a full-time job just to call people back and figure out kind of what neighborhood they want, how many beds and baths, and then send them to the right house and give them the lockbox code. I mean, we don't go to the houses already just because it'd be so much wasted time out driving around.
Right.
But we've recently got these automated electronic lock boxes. It's kind of like a super key for those who are familiar with those from the agent world.
Right.
They're from Rently.com, Rently, and basically a potential tenant can download an app to their phone, and for 99 cents, they are charged to their credit card, which helps verify their identity. But then they can access any home that's listed on Rently in their local area. And then they can see one of our properties. Let's say they want to go view 123 Main Street. They click on that. They say, I want to view it between 8 and 9 a.m. on Saturday. And then when they're at the property, Rently will text them a unique code to input into the box to access the key. And so that key code is tied to their name, so we know who's in the property at what hours. And then also they have to be their phone has to be in like geo proximity to the house as well. So they can't just pass out the code to their friend, their cousin, whoever else. So we always know who's in the property, and this whole thing is done automated. So this is something that we just ordered 10 boxes immediately, and we think it's probably going to save around 10 to 20 man hours per week, if not more, right off the bat.
Wow, I didn't know that thing. I'm a realtor. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, it's pretty new, and definitely check it out.
Yeah, as soon as I get off the phone with us, I'll be checking into that, because that's pretty cool. Huh. Very, very interesting. Gentlemen, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you if they want to connect?
They can email us at jointopsproperties@gmail.com or visit our website at jointopsproperties.com. And we also put out a daily YouTube video as well. And if you just go on YouTube and search Joint Ops Properties.
Outstanding. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come on the show and help my listeners learn to earn. That was a great episode. I got lots of good information. I'm still just taken back by the whole Rently.com thing. I'm definitely going to use that. And listeners, if you have not signed up for our Facebook group, let's not forget there that come to cashflowguys.com/group, cashflowguys.com/group to get on our Facebook group. That's where you can do a live Q&A with me. And from time to time, I'll bring one of the guests that are on the show actually on the video Q&A. And you can ask them questions directly from time to time. That'll be happening, so make sure that happens. And gentlemen, I just want to say happy Veterans Day, and thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you. Likewise.
Same to you. Thanks.
Until next time.
This concludes today's episode. You don't have to wait till the next episode to learn to earn.
Head over to cashflowguys.com and contact Tyler and his team for more powerful tips and ideas so you can start generating multiple streams of income and escape the rat race.